Brian here with BPS Customs S-Tech TV, and today's video is going to focus on items that I have in my shop that that help me tremendously on almost a daily basis that a lot of people might not think of or use in their builds. Things that aren't all that expensive, but that certainly come in handy on almost a daily basis. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is something that goes into literally every single one of my builds, and that is tie downs. These tie downs, I mean, you can get these almost anywhere. These are pretty universal as a product. You could probably get them at Target. I didn't buy these at Target. I actually bought these, I think, at Micro Center. But these are little points that you would hear. They have double-sided tape on them, and you could stick them to any point in your case and run zip ties through them. Now these are especially handy for cable management on the back of the motherboard tray when you're trying to get a handle on those unruly cables that are flying all over the place. They're four-way, so you could go either up, down, left, right, or you can mount them diagonally and go diagonally if you really feel like it. But these are super inexpensive. This was a case of like 100 of them. It was like $7. Like I said, I use these in every single build. It's how I do the cable management on some of my builds that don't have a lot of tie down points in the back of the cases. A lot of budget cases don't even come with any tie down points, places you can put zip ties and things of that nature. So these are something that I use all the time, and I highly recommend them, especially for newer case builders who may not know the importance of cable management. Second item kind of goes along the same theme. These are Velcro strips. Now these I use sometimes in lieu of zip ties. Sometimes I use them in combination with zip ties. They're simple strips that have a loop at one end that you could put the other end through and then pull it tight. Now the benefit that these have is obviously that they're reusable. You don't have to cut them every time you want to reposition some cables. You could even reuse them from system to system. The only bad thing is that they are a little thick, and sometimes they're a little difficult to maneuver into tight spaces, unlike zip ties, which obviously are very small. And these don't provide, these aren't as rigid as zip ties, so you can't snake them through a tight space if you need to. They don't provide that rigidity. But nevertheless, I do use these all the time. A lot of times these are for bigger cables like the 24 pin, things of that nature that you just need to tie down tight and need to be able to grab a larger circumference of cables. But these also, like the tie downs that I just showed you, super inexpensive. These are by NTE, but any number of companies make them. This was a pack of 10, and it was $5.50. So, like I said, because these are reusable, I mean, this will be good for a couple different builds, and then if I need to, I could just reuse them. The next item that are actually becoming a lot more popular with today's case modders is cable combs. Now I buy these in these booster packs or bumper packs, sorry, because I do use these quite often. So I need large numbers, but you could buy them individually. You could buy just a 24 pin. You could buy just your PCIe cables if you need them. A lot of different shops offer these, like Performance PCs offers them. You could buy them from any number of areas. A lot of companies that offer custom cables, like Ice Mods, and Cable Mod, I think also offers them as well. And companies like Sanctum Sleeving actually will offer the cables pre-combed, so they're bound together by the combs, and the combs actually cover the entire surface of the cables, so that they can't pop out, because they are open on the top, so that once you insert the cables, they should stay, but they can pop out. But these are extremely useful for tidying up the inside of a case, making an installation look professional, especially when you have individually sleeved cables. because, you know, the individually sleeved cables do look nice, but they could get twisted around, they can get bunched together. When you have them laid out so that they are just, you know, individually sleeved and separated like this, they end up just looking a lot better, and the presentation becomes a lot more professional. Fourth item, paintbrushes. As somebody who does some case modding, I guess not heavy modding, but I do some, and it does involve oftentimes painting. It's very important to have a variety of paintbrush tips because of where you're going to be painting. These tips go down to 0 size, which is basically just a few threads, and it's for getting in the very small areas. Like in this build, I don't know how evident it is on video, but there's a small X99 badge over the VRMs on the Sabertooth motherboard. And in order to paint that, it has a rim around it that is millimeters wide. No regular paintbrush is going to be able to get in there. Well, the 0 paintbrush gets in there. You know, in addition, I'm also often painting things like on the Sabertooth motherboard, the armor, the thermal armor. You could paint things like VRM covers on normal motherboards, and the chipset. Sometimes you could paint as well. Be careful what you paint. Be careful how you paint it. Always mask everything off. But paintbrushes of varying sizes come in super handy. I also do have paint pens that I use occasionally. Those aren't as good, and a lot of people use them, I know, but regular acrylic paint and paintbrushes is really the way to go for a professional finish. The last thing is something that I'm sure that a lot of people already have and use, but this is a magnetic parts tray. As you can see, it's full of stuff. I have so much stuff that I toss in here because I know it's not going anywhere, and then I could find it later. But when I'm doing a build, I usually will empty this stuff out and keep this with me next to me so that I can put screws in it as needed. But I don't even know how many screws I would have lost if it wasn't for this little doozy of a piece of equipment. This was like $2 or something like that at Micro Center. Pick one of these up if you ever plan on building computers. You will lose screws. You will become frustrated because you have to then go out and get replacement screws. I mean, these tiny little things will fly all over the place, especially things like motherboard screws, which are so small. You know, and just make sure you're using this. My advice with something like this is if you're going to be installing a component that uses a specific screw like a motherboard screw, take the screws that you're going to need out of the packaging for your motherboard and put them in here before you start your build, or before you start working on that specific part of your build. Have this next to you and take them out of here as opposed to taking them out of the packaging. This is not just for holding screws as you're taking something apart. Make sure that you could use this to categorize your screws, because if you put them on this in a certain space, they're going to stay there. They're not going to roll around. So you could have 4 motherboard screws, you could have 2 screws for your power supply, you could have thumb screws in another spot, and they'll all stay where they need to stay. This is certainly something that I use every single time I build a computer, and I recommend that everybody else does too. So that was just 5 things that I have in my shop that I recommend that everybody get. I mean, if you add all this stuff up, you're talking a total of, you know, $30 worth of equipment that makes building a computer just so much easier. And I think that everybody should kind of have this stuff at their disposal if they're going to jump into to building a computer. One thing that I don't have on me right now that I kind of wish that I was going to show off is my iFixit toolkit, which has every screw that you could ever need, every tip that you could ever need, as well as like spudgers and things of that nature, just for manipulating components, and it's the screwdriver that I use all the time. But iFixit toolkits, you know, they're run like $60, so you could certainly get away with a screwdriver that's much less expensive. But for somebody like me that does this kind of stuff all the time, having the availability of all the different tips is certainly worth it. So that's it. Brian with S-Tech, BPS Customs, signing off. Thanks for watching.